Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today I'm going to talk to you about public speaking, training, workshops, facilitation from a service mindset. And it's taken me a long time to come to realization the value of a service mindset. And it's an important key in many aspects of public speaking. And if you have a fear of public speaking and you change your mindset to, hey, I'm here to serve people, I'm not here to build myself up to big name myself, I'm actually here to give people solutions to problems. If you're trying to work out what content come from a service mindset, you may have great ideas, great knowledge, but if the people you're speaking to don't care, then it doesn't matter how clever, how smart, how passionate you are, your message is not linked, related, connected to the people you're speaking to, so you're not serving them. So welcome to the service mindset. It takes a paradigm shift. So when you realize, and hopefully from this day forth, every time you get before an audience, you understand you're there to serve the audience. That is the sole purpose. So today, you have invested your time, your energy, and in some cases, when people pay, your money to get something from me. None of you are here to cheer me on, pat me on the back because you love the sound of my voice. You're here from a position of self-interest, wanting to learn, wanting some knowledge to help you in your public speaking, your training, your communication journeys. So my role today is to serve you. It took me so long to do that paradigm shift and realize it's not about me. It's always about you, ladies and gentlemen out there, about your audience. Please ask questions as we go. Take notes, apply this to your own mindset, to your own thinking. Have you got a workshop coming up? Can you tweak your mindset? Can you do something that illustrates and elevates you to that mindset perspective? I'm recording this webinar. If I move through something too quickly or I gloss over something, then you will have a copy of this recording available to you to review. Ask questions as you go. I've opened up the Q&A box. So Stephen, Sarah, Michelle, Vicky, type in any question at any stage and I will answer it. I may park it till later on in the webinar, or I may immediately stop what I'm talking about to address your questions. So questions as we go. All right. So the agenda, how do you create a service mindset when you're speaking, training, presenting? 5 areas I'm going to talk about. Firstly, place your clients first and their needs. I briefly covered that in my introduction. A quote from Stephen Covey, seek first to understand, then to be understood. So understand people's issues, people's problems. Make yourself available to serve your audience before, during, and after your presentation. Treat all audiences and all clients with equal attention. Don't segregate. Don't think that one audience is more important than another. I run a fee structure for my workshops where I have a not-for-profit rate, Heart Foundation, Cancer Council, Cystic Fibrosis Association, and I have a corporate rate, BHP, Rio, Chevron, government agencies. Just because a not-for-profit pays me less, I would never treat them with any less attention, any less respect. And the other way of building that service mindset, of demonstrating that service mindset, is to create that trust, that reliability, that authenticity that you do in your area of expertise. Let me go through those one by one, and that's the agenda for today's 30-minute webinar. But first of all, place your client first and their needs first. So it's about serving their needs. What is it that the client wants from you? And there's that acronym, WIIFM, what's in it for me? Because I mentioned that you're here out of self-interest. And I sometimes in my workshops, I tongue-in-cheek call my audiences selfish. You're a selfish group of people. You're here out of self-interest. You're here to take from me, to take knowledge, to take information, to take inspiration. So one of the ways of placing your client first and their needs first is to make sure you serve their needs. What headache, what problem do they have? What needs, what goals, what key performance indicators are they struggling? And how does your message and how do you tailor your message for their needs, not your needs? And that's one of the mistakes that a lot of speakers make. That is, they come from a perspective of their own needs and forget about what the client's needs are. So even within the workplace, if I'm asking you to change the way you work, to adopt a different policy, a new strategy, to roll out some new software for the purpose of making more money, more profit for our shareholders, you're going to say to me, you're going to be thinking, well, why should we change, work harder, do differently? What's in it for us? So in selling a change management perspective, I've got to work out what's in it for the workers, what's in it for the audience. And it needs to be around efficiencies for you, making things easier for you, making complex, maybe you've got 3 IT platforms, one for human resources, one for annual leave, one for sick leave, and I'm asking you to change and move into one new platform. And you probably know that, and just let me get my drawing tool out, you probably know that as we go from pain to pleasure, if this side is pain, alleviating pain is a stronger motivator than creating pleasure. So this is about what are their needs, what are their problems, and how do you solve them? So that's the first way to serve your audience, the first way to have a service mentality as a public speaker, as a trainer. The second way is a quote from Stephen Covey, is to seek first to understand, then to be understood. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. So what this means is you need to really understand their problems. And the metaphor that I use that best captures this is walk a mile in their shoes, in your audience's shoes. So you move from a perspective of this is what I know, this is what I think needs to happen, this is what I want to teach you, to, oh, this is what they're struggling with. This is the issues they're facing every day. So how can I change my message and demonstrate that I'm here to help you? I often tell the story about speech pathology students who treat people who stutter later on in life. When they're qualified speech pathologists, they do teaching. speech pathology help people who stutter, among many other things. One of the things they do at university is they do a day where they learn about stuttering, and they have to walk around campus and stutter. Fake stuttering, deliberate stuttering. I don't want to talk about the ethics of that. It's, as a person who stutters, it's fine. But what they find is it's really difficult. It's embarrassing. It's humiliation. They get pushback. People laugh at them. People don't know what to do. So now when they sit down as a qualified speech pathologist and work with someone who's struggling with their stutter, they've got that deeper understanding of the pain, the humiliation, the embarrassment of someone who stutters. They've metaphorically and literally walked a mile in their client's footsteps. So what are you going to do to make sure you understand what your audience wants? Are you going to phone up a few key stakeholders? Are you going to send out a pre-workshop questionnaire? What's the biggest issue facing you? When I do coaching, I have a standard pre-coaching pro forma that people fill out, and it's got open questions. What are some circumstances where you have to do public speaking? What concerns you? What happens when you do public speaking? And it may be nerves, it may be mind goes blank, it may be I struggle with questions. What's your strengths around public speaking? Because I don't want to focus just on negatives. What are your strengths? And where are you now in terms of your confidence? Because as a coach, I want them to be able to, maybe they're a 6 out of 10 this week, and next week I'd like them to be a 7 out of 10. And at the end of 5 sessions of coaching, they are reporting a higher level than where they started. So how do you seek first to understand, then to be understood? A service mindset is putting yourself in your audience's footsteps. Are there any questions? Thanks, Sarah. What if, so the question is, what if you don't have time to prepare and you're asked to present? So you haven't walked 30 miles, you haven't walked a mile in your audience's footsteps. I guess that's quite difficult, and you need to acknowledge that you're now taking on a more difficult speaking assignment. And I would ask why you might have to do that. And if you're filling in for someone at short notice, they're sick, then hopefully they've got some cheat notes about their audience, or even the organizer. So the boss says, the boss might say, oh, can you go and speak to this group of people in an hour? They're here on a tour, on a fact-finding mission. I would say to my boss, okay, what do you know about them? Where are they coming from? Why are they here? What's the purpose of this visit? What do you want them to know, to feel, to do after I've spoken to them? So at least you've got that mini understanding. If they're a particular organization, you know, a quick Google, maybe you'll find out their values, their mission, their, you know, what they find valuable to them, and you can quickly adjust your content, your language to suit that particular group of people. So it's a tough one, Sarah, but yeah, you do the best you can. And ultimately, if none of that works and you find that you have a disconnect with your audience because you don't really understand what they need, then that becomes a lesson, and you find out retrospectively about what would have worked better with the audience. And although you've finished the gig, you've now prepared yourself should that audience, that mirror audience, ever occur again, you're ready to understand them a little bit better. Good question, Sarah. Make yourself available to serve your audience before, during, and after your presentation. Here's the mistake I see a lot of people do. They come, they present, they go. I've just spoken about pre-workshop questionnaire. What about a pre-workshop experience, sending out a TED talk that helps them understand fear if I'm talking about overcoming your fear of public speaking? Maybe Brene Brown around the power of vulnerability. Some YouTube videos around nonverbal communication if I'm doing a workshop on body language. Post-workshop experience is really important. So after this webinar, and in my introduction, I mentioned if you have any questions after the workshop, after the webinar, please email me. If 2 weeks down the track, something surfaces for you around your service mentality, around difficulty in serving your audience, similar to the question that Sarah just asked, send me an email and I will support you as best I can after the webinar. What do you do to create a strong pre-workshop or pre-presentation experience? And on the other side, what do you do to create a strong post-workshop or presentation experience? This is putting your audience first. This demonstrates to your audience you're there to serve them. And it's not just doing the motion, you really do it to serve your audience. You do it to be of value to your audience, to add another layer. So your presentation doesn't finish when you walk off the stage. Your presentation doesn't start as you walk on the stage. I'm keynote speaking on Wednesday here in Perth at the Crown Complex, big seminar rooms there. And I'm speaking after lunch, so I think it's 1:45. So it's one of the graveyard shifts. So people will have had lunch, they'll be sleepy, food will be in their stomach, and I come on and I have to, I guess, entertain, inspire, and educate. I'm going to be there from 7 a.m. in the morning, and I'm going to listen to the 5 speakers before me. I'm going to chat to people in morning tea. I'm going to chat to people and the lunch break. I'll talk to people before they open the rooms of the door to let us in and say, oh yeah, I'm one of the speakers. What's some of the issues that are facing you? And it helps me get comfortable, but it also lets people know that I'm there and I'm really invested in serving them. And I'm not going to leave at 2:30 when I finish. There's one more speaker after me, then there's afternoon tea, then there's 2 more speakers. I will remain until 5 o'clock and the close of the convention. So afternoon tea, people can come and talk to me about what I said. So this is a service mindset. My role on Wednesday is to serve the 150 people in the room as best I can. What are you going to do to create a strong pre and post workshop experience? Treat all audiences and all clients with equal attention. I mentioned in my introduction about the 2-tier structure I have for the corporates and the not-for-profits. I like to serve the not-for-profit community, and they don't like to pay my fee. They struggle to pay my fee. Not all of them, but some of them. So I will always try and work out a way of serving them. And I don't deliver a lesser experience just because I'm working for a non-for-profit. So every time I present, I do my best and I treat all audiences and all clients equal. So I let everybody know there are no silly questions. So if there is a bit of a heckler in the room or someone who keeps asking, I guess, questions that I've kind of covered, that I assume everybody knows, I will never belittle them. I will never put them down. Wherever I go, I will acknowledge the traditional landowners. Acknowledge. I can't welcome. am not an Indigenous person myself, but I'll acknowledge. Now, on Wednesday, I won't need to because they will have a welcome to country, and it is Noongar land here in Perth, specifically in Perth. It's the Whadjuk Nation. When I go to Bendigo, it's the Dja Dja Wurrung people, Dja Dja Wurrung. When I go to Geelong, it's the Wathaurong people. When I go to Mildura, it's the Latchi people. So I make a point of paying a cultural compliment wherever I go, and you never know what might happen. I was in a mine site in Western Australia in the Pilbara, and I did my research, found out who the traditional landowners were, and I acknowledged the people to a group of 12 people who, as far as I could tell, there was no Indigenous people within the room. A young lady came up and thanked me and said, look, my background is Noongar from Broome Hill in Western Australia. That's where my grandma comes from. And so few people acknowledge, let alone you knew whose land this was in this remote part of the Pilbara. That's a service mentality. Build people up, encourage them, treat all audiences with equal attention, with equal respect. So what are you going to do? What can you do to do that little cultural compliment? That treat that audience a little bit special. I spoke in Malaysia earlier this year, and one of the things I spoke about earlier on was my love for Malaysian food. So I love beef rendang. I love char kway teow, the fried kway teow noodle. I also love kuching laksa, Malaysia laksa. And as soon as I mentioned those things, and I'd been to Malaysia 10 times, and I love the food, I could see the audience. They laughed, they smiled, and I had them engaged just by a little bit of knowledge of their culture. Sometimes you will do networking, and while networking is less about public speaking, and someone offers you a card with two hands, you know the correct thing to do is to then receive it with two hands, as opposed to I offer it to you with two hands and you reach out and grab it with one hand. That's just culturally disrespectful. Even in Australia, even though we live in Australia, but so much of our neighbours and so many of our Australians will give you the card with two hands. The Japanese, the Singaporeans, the Indonesians, the Chinese, the Malaysians, just knowing that gives them a cultural compliment. That's coming from a service mentality. And so as you're walking a mile in your audience's footsteps to find out what's in it for me, what's their problems, also do it from a cultural audit perspective, from an audience audit perspective. And that way you can tone down your language, change your language. On the mine site, I can be a little bit more rough in my language, but I listen to the language that they're using in the room when they talk back, and then I will adjust my language. At the keynote conference on Wednesday, I will be very careful and very proper in the language I use. I will avoid slang and I will not use any swear words. What do you do to build trust, reliability, and authenticity? The good news is that audiences want genuine and authentic speakers. They trust someone who's genuine and authentic. The being genuine and authentic, Stephen, means I won't be perfect. So this webinar is far from perfect. A few stutters, a few ums and ahs, a couple of brain drains because I don't read from notes. But I want to come across as as being authentic and being genuine. If I'm not authentic and I'm not genuine, then I'm fake. And people don't trust fake people. So it's less about being perfect, less about being word perfect, and more about tapping into your genuine passion, authenticity for your audience, for the audience's needs, for the audience's problems and issues that you think you may have some solutions, some help for, around about helping your audience get to their goals. Here's the thing, people only buy from people they know, like, and trust. And that buy should be B-U-Y. People only buy from people they know, like, and trust. If they don't trust you, they won't buy from you. Now, let me put, so that's, you know, like shopping and buying a car, and if the salesperson, you don't trust them, then you're less likely to buy. Please understand, when you're talking, when you're training, when you're speaking, you are selling. You're selling a message. You're selling a new idea. You're selling a change management process. And people will only buy that new position, that new idea, if they trust you. But by having that service mindset, that service mentality, and putting the audience first, and you being authentic within yourself, you will build that trust. You'll build that likability. They'll think they know you. They'll think you know you. And if you've used cultural compliments, if you've acknowledged the traditional landowners, if you've spoken about their local cuisine, other nuances that relate to that audience, you've taken the time to find out, then all of a sudden it's almost like you're not a stranger walking on the stage for the first time in that organization. So you've taken the time to learn a little bit about them. Now they know you a little bit more. They're going to like you a little bit more, and they'll trust you. So 5 ways to adopt, be more service mindset, service orientated, public speaking from a service mindset. Place your client first, their needs first. Put them ahead of your own. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Walk a mile in their footsteps. Make yourself available to serve your audience during the workshop, during the seminar, by all means. But what are you going to do before, and what are you going to do after to make them realize that you really care? Treat all audiences with equal attention. Some people I work with work in tough areas, mental health, health and safety. And the reality is, if one client changes their behavior, changes their attitude, potentially sees light at the end of the tunnel as a result of what you've said, you've potentially saved someone's life. So if you are a health and safety trainer and the temptation is just to go and read through your manual, just, you know, we've complied, we've done our health and safety. No. Even though you do it every week for 52 years, 52 weeks of the year, each audience is special. Each audience you can change, and demonstrate trust and reliability and authenticity. Which of these are you going to use to demonstrate your audience is important to you, to help them realize you have a service mindset? Workshops coming up in Perth, speaking off the cuff, 2nd of December, Bunbury, winning presentation skills on the 26th. They're all on my website. Next webinars, two webinars for December. I've deliberately put them early on so that I know people go on leave in December and January. 4th of December, the power of feedback when public speaking. How do you get feedback? And please do send me emails. Give me feedback on this webinar. Was it worthwhile? Waste of time? went on for too long, could have been done in 10 minutes. And how to keep your audience awake. Michelle, are you still there? Steve, what do you do if your audience falls asleep? How do you keep them engaged? So they're the two upcoming webinars. So ending, a service mindset. When you have that paradigm shift and you realize that every time you train, educate, facilitate, run a keynote presentation, it's about your audience. There's 5 ways of making sure you adopt and demonstrate a service mindset. Thank you very much.